A way to get around everything. Bah! Good morning. We can't take days off. We can't phone it in. We can't wait for somebody else to feed us. Am I right? It is day 55 of your free real estate education. We are here in the office with some wonderful people already, having some big discussions. You guys can keep talking. I'm just going to talk a little bit louder, a little bit closer to my microphone. So JP, right? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Christian. Good morning, Amy. Yes. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson, F the middleman, right? F the middleman. Bought this one straight from Mike Tyson's website, supporting this entrepreneur. Everyone should be able to have an opportunity to financially benefit from the work that they do, whether it is the good work or whether it is their own work in their own business, because everything is connected. Everything is connected. So where do you find enlightenment? Amy, I loved your meme drop this morning. Where do you find enlightenment? You don't find it meditating on a mountain. You don't find it in a church. You find it in the trenches. You find it getting punched in the mouth. You find it getting up again in the rebuilding. So what's going to happen when all of this money changes hands over the course of the next 20 to 30 years? Economists are saying, and this is the video link that I'm going to share here for you guys in the discussion, and in fact, I'll go ahead and I'll share you the video link right now just to make sure that I don't miss it. Economics Explained has a fantastic video that they did talking about the post-boomer boom. This isn't something that we necessarily have to shy away from talking about it, how like it's not going to happen, or sugarcoat it like it's not something that we should set ourselves up for. Financially benefit from, because either you are going to make money in your market or someone else is going to make money in your market that's not going to spend it there. That's what community is all about. It's about working with the lender down the street, not the one 60 miles away. In fact, we've got kind of this 15-mile cap that we've been talking about, 15 to 20-mile cap, where we don't really necessarily want to work with anyone that's further than 15 to 20 miles away. It's about having your ear to the local ground. Having your ear to the heartbeat. Because if you are not in the trenches, you are going to get replaced. Everyone's worried about Zillow opening a brokerage. Zillow can't beat us here in the trenches because Zillow is not in the ring. They are dependent on their foot soldiers. They are dependent on other people. So what I'm going to tell you right now is get ready, because everyone talks about how there's a massive amount of wealth in that upper 1%. Everybody talks about how there's a massive amount of wealth within the older generation. Well, a lot of that was created through real estate, first off, with as far as the generational real estate. But second, a lot of that money is getting ready to change hands. So $30 trillion in the United States over the course of the next 2 decades. $100 trillion worldwide over the course of the next 2 decades, because of the fact that people are simply going to be aging out of the ownership of their real estate. They're going to be either moving into homes, placing their ownership into the hands of their children, or passing away. Okay, there was a big boom that happened at the end of at the end of 17,000 wars ago, World War II, and then there was a lot of people that were born all at one time, and those people bought real estate around a similar time. So a lot of wealth is owned in that older generation. And in fact, I have a graph here that I could show you. Good morning, Brian. Thank you very much. Good morning, King. Good morning, King. We have an opportunity here to see in this graph, if I can find it, exactly how much wealth is owned by the baby boomer generation compared to Generation X, compared to the millennials, compared to Generation Z. And I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be able to find that graph, or you're just going to have to take my word for it. But I can't remember exactly what the numbers were. But anyway, I'm not going to look for it anymore. The numbers are this, something along this. The millennials, who make up 47% of the workforce, only own about 13% of the wealth, or something like that. Generation Z, it's much worse than that. Of course, they're a little bit younger, so people don't expect that they necessarily are in ownership opportunities. But the big difference between millennials and Generation Z is there's very little opportunities for startups. It's very predatory for people entering the job market. And so, how are people going to feed themselves, their families, while be able to maintain a certain level of financial freedom in, hey, what do I want to do with my time? Do I want to spend my life working 9 to 5 for somebody else, making someone else money forever? Or do I want to step into ownership, which is what we talked about, I think, on Wednesday? Owning your business versus being owned by somebody, right? Or having ownership in business, being able to create ownership in your business. Okay, so how can you capitalize on this? How can you capitalize on, how can you support people? Look, there's a greasy way to say everything, and there's a PC way to say everything. How can you capitalize on it? Well, there's a lot of people that are just straight up being greasy about it and, calling all of the lists that, you wouldn't have ever imagined anyone wanting to call. But then there are a lot of people who are simply approaching it from an angle of support. If I don't support people in their transition, then who is going to do it? So if you see a need, then you feel a need. And I tell, especially my I personalities, S personalities, C personalities, if they're brave enough to be in a sales position, despite having a very administratively minded, it takes a lot of bravery to step into sales, I think, as a C personality. But I tell these people who have to approach sales from a place that they have to believe in the product, go at it from an angle of support. Because if you don't do it, then a high D driving personality who wants to, own the wealth, who wants to make as much money as possible, who's willing to bully everybody. I'm very much in touch with that yin yang. This is the light, this is the darkness, this is the darkness and the light, this is the light and the darkness. That sort of understanding everything. So for me, as a high D, a 99D, I know that if I am not more aggressive than these other Ds, or if I do not teach people who are ISC personalities, independent, extrovert, supporting, or cleric, administrative-minded people, how to sell and empower the people around them, how to believe in themselves through systems, then what's going to happen is it's going to be ran by a lot of people who may not necessarily have the morality in check, right? Because with a lot of these high Ds, you find a lot of these very dominant people, like myself, who maybe edge on the border of really being a very good person and being a total narcissist, right? Okay, and then you're just like, hey, is this guy a narcissist? Is he really a good person, or is he really a terrible person? Like, that's it. That's duality. I'll keep you guessing, right? I'll keep you guessing. I did the bearded thing for a long time. I'll tell you, it's hard to accomplish something when people aren't, they won't hear the message because of the appearance. A lot of people know that. A lot of people, so that's why I have to get all dolled up every morning, and I have to spend a little extra couple moments on my hair. God, what a pain in the ass. But I'll tell you what, if that's what we got to do to get it done, if that's what we got to do to get it done, to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish, I'll be the palatable radical. Okay, so how can you accomplish it? This is the Socratic discussion. We might as well go ahead and jump into it. How can you accomplish wealth by either supporting this market, niching down, the riches are in the niches, or capitalize on this market, however you want to look at it, so that you can get your hands on $30 trillion, part of that $30 trillion here in the United States, give or take $1 trillion, and then, locally or nationally. What can you do? Let's put on our thinking caps because I'm not going to do it for you. This is that part of the class where it's a Socratic discussion. And then look at people tuning out. I don't want to think, Serpa. Don't make me do it. Don't make me think about something so terrible. But that's what we do. That's part of this Friday plan is how do you really think objectively about your business, your marketing, your community as a whole, the national community? Because if 95% of inherited wealth is spent within the first 5 years, how are you going to financially benefit from that? Unless you live in that weird part of the country where all of the real estate is owned by 20-somethings. Anybody know of a place like that?
No.
Where all of the real estate is owned by 20-somethings? What about 30-somethings? That's not happening either. All right. There's nothing to fear about death. People get so worked up about death. They think it's such a dirty word. How do you help people transition? I like to think about myself, if I'm being quite honest, as the angel of death. This transition, this flow. How do you constantly be thinking about business in a new way, adapt, embrace death, embrace flow, so that it doesn't become a bad word when that ego breaks down, when the person breaks down, because then you can embrace your business from a place of service. Have a wonderful day, JP. Anybody brave enough to jump into this conversation, either in the office, on Zoom, or on Facebook? It's a scary one. That's why I did it. Last week we were talking about redlining. I have had high school students talking about redlining. We have to talk about these things that people don't want to talk about, that people are uncomfortable talking about. Otherwise, they're going to happen. And no plan is a plan. If you have no plan, that is a plan. All right, I'm going to start picking on people. I'm going to start doing it. We've got the Zoom class. We have got people in the office, some very influential and very intelligent people. Who's going to jump in? How can we support people in their transition either into their golden years? How can we support people in their loved ones after they have left this planet? Right? Why are we so afraid of this conversation right now? It's very interesting.
I'm not afraid of that.
You ready?
You can chime in on it.
Christian Tikas. This is bravery right here. I love this man.
I mean, it starts with us. That's always my catchphrase, because it always starts with me, regardless. And it's exactly what we're doing here, though, right? What's the purpose of our community? It's to build relationships, community, and to establish things that people might be lacking, right? So when you're talking about all these different things, they are a result of poor relationships, of people taking advantage of circumstances, right?
Yep.
And so we have to play the role when we are, in a sense, woke, to be the educational influencers of our time.
Yeah.
So, for me as a Generation X, my job is to mentor generation, the new Generation Z and all these other ones before me, because I've gotten to this point and I've been brought forth as far as the education and the wisdom that has come through all this. My job is to pass it down, right? And there's people that are above me that are older, wiser, been through it, and my job there is to establish a relationship with those people so they can continue passing that influential wisdom down as well. So, in the easy, I guess, answer is we need to build continued relationships, and you have to do that, like this, right? We're working alongside each other. We're continually moving forward in progress, because I'm a firm believer in progress, and that people have to be taught that there's something that they can do.
Yep.
And it's empowerment, really.
And it's not greasy.
No.
The thing is, so that's part of what we wanted to do with our community, was establish this lifestyle brand that is everything in, of, around real estate. So that, the Serpa team inside of our community, these other real estate teams within, Zachary Bach within our community, whoever it is that's within our community, is there to help them when the time comes.
Exactly.
And so when it used to be that people would gather around a fire,
right,
and that's where wisdom was passed down.
Exactly.
And then eventually, it was Main Street. People would gather around Main Street, and businesses would sort of exchange ideas, and they would network with one another.
Right.
And then eventually Main Street went away, and then people weren't allowed to talk about ideas because the narrative was controlled within either the anti-union speech or either the anti-religious speech. And then what would happen is people started gathering in churches, and then churches sort of stopped being a place where people would gather.
Right.
And then so what happens when people are no longer gathering and passing along information? And that's really, if you're going to develop a community, if you're going to develop a lifestyle, the idea, really, truthfully, honestly, is to control a certain narrative, decide what that narrative is. Some people, their narrative is, very funny. Some people, their narrative, they approach it, from a wide variety of ways, like we do. And so, education.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite Bible verses says that my people perish for a lack of wisdom. And it's true. Wisdom is truly what sets people free, empowers them, and when you truly have wisdom, there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is something that you can keep to yourself in cases. Wisdom is truly something that you pass down, and so when you don't pass down wisdom or you don't look for it or search for it, you know, you perish.
Gosh, that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And what I love about what we've built with our community too is we're constantly challenging that narrative of division.
Yeah.
Oh, we're so divided. Oh, really?
Really? Yeah.
Come down to our community because I can tell you that there are people here that would normally disagree about everything that are agreeing about a great deal of everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because we have so much common ground. And we're buying this broken narrative that, hello, Christy, so good to see you, that we are broken divisionally, that we are broken generationally, that we're broken by race, that we're broken by neighborhood, right?
Right.
But the truth is all of these things are superficial things.
They are.
We've just tucked away death because we're terrified of it.
Right.
That's why our wars are overseas.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our families die in homes and in senior communities, right? We've tucked away the dying. We've tucked away not even the dying. We've gone as extreme as to tuck away like families used to be generational within the home,
Right.
and there's kind of a return to that in a lot of ways.
There is.
But was wisdom being passed down from the people that were there. Oh, well, this is the narrative from the tongue that's from the eyes that saw it. Well, this is what was going on during that time. You know what I mean? And we have absolutely divided us generationally, and we've almost created this sort of like meme culture where it's like, oh, millennials are this, so blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm a millennial. You know, oh, baby boomers, they're also this, blah, blah. And hey, it's funny to joke around about, but where's the commonality? Where's the wisdom? How do we break bread together? How do we pass that along?
Well, it breaks down relationships that way when you have that mindset instead of build them. So.
Love it. Beautiful part of the Socratic discussion. Amy, are you so brave as to jump in? That I'll tell you what, that was a completely different thing than I was expecting right now. I had no plan for this. Like with all the Socratic discussions and probably most of the classes you guys have noticed, I just sort of show up when we start talking. But happy Good Friday, Tom. Nice shirt. Thank you. Everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Pow.
Pow, pow.
And I got this directly from Mike Tyson on his website, F the Middleman, right?
That's right.
Okay, so, and that's, of course, a Nipsey Hussle thing. So I love that sort of the culture, the truth that comes out in comedy, the truth that comes out in hip hop, the truth that comes in embracing a community. So right now what we're doing is we're having a very real conversation about how can you financially benefit from the exorbitant amount of wealth that is getting ready to change hands over the course of the next 2 decades. Like I said, $30 trillion throughout the course of the United States, $100 trillion over the course of throughout the world is going to change hands, wealth, because people are going to pass away. People are aging into retirement homes. The baby boomer generation is passing away. They're going to, in a lot of ways. And they own so much real estate. They own so much wealth.
Right.
And 95% of wealth is inherited with, 95% of inherited wealth is spent within the first 5 years. How do you set yourself up to financially benefit from some of that wealth changing hands?
It's a great question. So for me personally, it's really been, like Christian said, a lot about educating myself. So, our background, we don't come from a lot of wealth. We're coming from a very self-made, self-developed area. So it's been a lot of, hopping on Google, YouTube, connecting with our network, financial planners like the class we just had the other day. And so it's really kind of understanding. I had this fear attached to money and that I didn't know how to use it properly. So how do I leverage money? And how do I not spend that inheritance, right? How do I build up this inheritance for my children to where when I'm handing off the wealth that I have made for a generational purpose, it's not then blasted through, like 95% of people, right? So wow. I have really, we've both set a really solid foundation for ourselves and, that military foundation, We're both very service minded and service hearted. But in order to do these things, wealth needs to empower us to be able to give back. And so looking at wealth like it's not a dirty thing, a greasy thing, as a tool of empowerment, to be able to, step in there and, educate other people and, show them, hey, listen, we did it ourselves. We didn't know
Sure.
either. And I totally understand where you're coming from, but, education is power. And
Tim said the other day, he said, I'm going at this from a place of my cup is empty.
right,
And I thought that was a very intelligent thing to say, right? Like a wise man knows when he doesn't know,
right,
right? So if you are an empty cup, it gives
do
you an
you fill it?
opportunity to become full, right?
Right.
And so there's sort of this really beautiful breakdown that comes, and then this wisdom that comes from an emergence of it, whether you think of it as like a phoenix rising from the ashes
Totally.
and the perpetual burning, whether you think about it as a tree being born from the soil, whatever it is, there is the rooting that comes from deconstruction.
right,
And ultimately what that is that's death and rebirth in life, right?
Right.
Being born again in Christ, right? There's a lot of different things that, we talk about. So I love the approach of, financial planning. You
Right.
go at it from a place of, we've been helping people financially plan for the last 20 years. And so, of course, they were going to sell with, because they were tapped into our network,
right,
they were going to sell with our network.
right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
Or,
absolutely.
of course, because they've been spending money with our network for the last 20 years, everything's tied in, right? Very, very, very intelligent thing to say, Amy.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's so important to find your own training, and find your own education and ask these questions. It's like I don't know what I don't know, and so why not? I'm not asking this question just for myself. I'm asking it for my children. I'm asking it for my children's children, and so it really is about empowering yourself into wealth, and then how do you leverage that money that you're making to work smarter and not harder? What do I invest in? Is it smarter for me to keep the cash in the mattress, or is it smarter for me to invest in stocks? And so really figuring out, which way to go. A lot of the baby boomers, they're, nearing their time. And so it's really important that our youth, who I feel are very uneducated about financial planning, and even our generation, we weren't taught these things in school, and our parents, aren't necessarily the ones carrying the wealth either. They're inheriting the boomer wealth. So they don't even understand necessarily how to educate us on wealth and how to utilize this thing as a tool. And so it's important for us to then stand up and bridge that gap between, the wealth that has been passed down, and then how do I not misuse that? And then how do I create my own? Again, we're from a westernized culture where we're all very individualized, and, what's mine is mine. And, it's created kind of this very disingenuous way of operating, in that we're constantly comparing, our lives with one another on social media and things.
Well, and
Scarcity mindset.
It creates a scarcity mindset of like, well, I don't have that, and their
Sure.
life is so great, and things like that. But in all reality, listening to Susie Orman, she says, it's much more of a comfort to have that cash in your bank account in case of emergencies or all of these things, versus having all of these things, all these pretty things in your home to make you feel better. It's all aesthetics. What is that stuff really at the end of the day?
so I think that probably with all of it being connected, right? Part of financially benefiting from the post-boomer boom
Right.
is by helping baby boomers enjoy their twilight years and understanding the birth
Right.
because I think Shakespeare talks about life is lived in these chapters, and and the last is you return to the infant, sans teeth, sans eyeballs,
That's
sans
right.
everything. And so embracing our seniors, bringing them in, making them not feel discarded, making sure that they have somebody who is willing to educate them or help them understand a world that is transitioning in a lot of ways, become digitalized in a lot of ways, so that they don't get so overwhelmed that then they're getting financially preyed on.
Absolutely.
Right?
Without a doubt.
Because it kind of goes back to that thing with everything being connected. There was something else that was extraordinarily important. So helping them enjoy themselves, and then that natural phase, everything being connected. A big part of it, understanding that wealth is not a dirty word. Wow,
Yeah.
that was a big one for me, because I had trouble holding on to wealth, because I was just sort of like, Greedy people have wealth.
Yeah,
And there's sort
totally.
of a balance between it. And I saw this, I thought this was hilarious. I sold my mansion to feed the poor. April
His
Fools.
$1 million estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like the spirituality of understanding money
Yeah.
and understanding like how you can benefit from it versus how you could benefit from spirituality
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
like how do you ride these waves? And it's with everything being connected, it's very easy to understand.
I'm telling you, brother, when I first got my my first commission check, I had a hard time cashing it actually because I was like, oh, I don't know, that's more money than I'm used to, and what am I going to do with that? And there was a sense of like unworthiness that came along with it, and I was like, what am I even doing right now? This is beautiful, and so like this was gifted to me from the universe. I've earned this. I've worked hard for this, and so it's not only just for me; it's for my babies. It's for this community, and so now it has been a state of accepting these blessings and understanding that it's a necessary thing to be able to, have this income so that I can make it work not just for myself, but for this family and this community.
No plan is a plan. What are you going to do? How are you going to clear those old ways of thinking about money?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Love you, bro.
Appreciate it. Love
Happy
you.
Friday, y'all.
Okay, a part of this is reading, studying, becoming a better version of yourself. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great way to analyze wealth creation, help your children to understand wealth from a young age, in that you don't necessarily work for money, you work for knowledge, right? That's one of the things that Darren Campbell understood in his career, was that knowledge ultimately ended up being more important than the money, because the knowledge created the money. Knowledge creates money. So how do you continue to gather around the fire, pass along information to other people? How do you continue to help people create generational wealth that may or may not have been exposed to this sort of thought before? Okay, so if you guys are watching right now at home, I want to encourage you, great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki, check it out, good stuff. And then if anybody wants to go ahead and join in, Christy, did you want to join in?
I did.
Okay, I'd love to have
You know
you.
me, I'm not big on going on. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
All right. So, my parents have made a lot of money for themselves. They've invested. They've been very wise. Talked about financial planning all the time to me. I didn't listen. I didn't learn. When Scott Lemus came on the other day, I got goosebumps. I listened to it 3 times. I contacted him immediately because I realized my parents are now just about 80, and we will inherit some of their wealth. I don't want to do them a disservice and waste their money in 5 years. I need to financial plan and teach myself and have someone help me and learn about it so that I can create that and help other people and use that money towards good things instead of squandering it off.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about that, and again, I'm excited about meeting with Scott because I don't have my good financial planning going. Even at this age, I'm like, good Lord, what am I doing this late in life?
What great awareness to then sit with that and then be like, okay, well, I am going to be bringing in some wealth.
Yeah.
And I don't want to squander it because it wasn't created gradually, or it wasn't created overnight. A lot of this wealth was created over 30 or 40 years of paying off real estate, working as a teacher, and I want to talk about a dad and passing away and inheriting that wealth and then what he chose to do with it. So I want you to come back here in a moment. Great input.
Yeah, and not even just for my parents' money, but now thinking about me and now going into this real estate license, which I'm so excited, and I know I'm going to do really well. So I'm excited about that, and using that going towards my children and their future, and then being able to teach my children financial stability and financial wealth, and being able to use that in positive ways.
That's such a beautiful thing to say, because the truth is like we often throw away ourselves in these things. But then we really have an opportunity to financially plan, financially set ourselves up for success. Kate watched the video the other day with the financial planner, Lemus. What was that first name again? Scott Lemus. She said she watched it a couple of times.
Yeah.
And she's been in contact with Scott and with Bianca, because the thing is, we're planning on a surge of wealth to come.
Yeah.
So why not plan for abundance? Why not set ourselves up for success? But no matter what's coming in, it's not what you spend and it's not what you keep. It's how you set yourself up for financial freedom in the future. Absolutely fantastic feedback, my friend. Wonderful. Amy, let's make it personal. Okay, So we had a death in the family. But last year, 2 years ago,
Last year.
last year. I'm not good with time. It all sort of just runs in together.
Yeah.
Um,
Burn the clocks.
but so Dad's dad was a teacher in the Bay Area, bought a house, made some sound financial investments for himself, and then my dad and his siblings or sibling inherited some wealth, and it's started going
Yep.
relatively quickly.
Yep.
Monies, people have debts, people have bills, people have, of course, old debts that they've got to sort of square and whatnot. There's a reason why a lot of that wealth is squandered, and that's because a lot of us are in debt. A lot of the people in the younger generation were not financially set up, and so it creates this cycle
Mhm.
where wealth gets taken away at the moment of death, right? Or before it, people get slowly bled out over their twilight years, and they're just desperately hoping to have enough money so that they don't die in debt,
Right.
so that they don't die penniless, so that there's somebody around who gives a crap about them, et cetera and so forth. But so Dad inherited some wealth, so he'd spent some money, and then what did he end up doing?
Buying a house, investing in real estate. Yeah.
Yep. Kate ended up talking to him,
Yeah.
of all people.
Yeah.
And my wife, Kate, talked to my dad and said, "You might want to buy a house.
Absolutely.
You inherited a pretty good amount of money. The market is going like this. Why not buy a house?"
Yeah.
And it ended up being probably the best thing that he could have done for himself.
Yeah. 100%.
Because in the last year, that investment has already put himself in a situation where he's accrued over $100,000
Well over. Yeah.
in wealth. And of course, if you look at what real estate does over a long period of time, that's only going to continue to go up.
Right.
Even if it goes down a little bit, it's going to continue to go up. Everyone's waiting for the return of the buyer's market and whatnot.
Right.
It's like, ooh, best time to buy real estate was 20 years ago. Second best time is today, right?
Right. Totally.
Anyway, anything else to say?
Yeah, real estate really is a great way to build wealth, and, we invested in a gold mine, we're very strategic about the area that we invested in. And we did see it as a generational tool to be able to build wealth and leverage the wealth that we had inherited from our grandfather. And then how do we make that work for us currently? We needed a place to live, right?
Yep.
That cost of living is substantial. So by spending a larger part of that inheritance as the down payment, cutting the cost of the mortgage down, so essentially that monthly payment was lower. It really was a great investment. And then, like you said, it's been well over $100,000 of equity. Buying in a developing area. Be very, very, very smart about where you're buying. Buying on the wrong side of the tracks will cost you property taxes,
Which
right?
in a lot of ways could be the right side of the tracks. A lot of people look at oh man, what a great neighborhood, and what are this and that, and it's 97% built out, which means that it's going to have growth, but it's it's going to be like 2 to 3% a year,
Yeah.
right? Versus a lot of these areas that are 40, 50, 60% built out, but you look at the planning for the city, and it's just like this, like
Yeah.
that sort of like opportunity to continue to grow
Yeah.
exponentially, and by buying in the right area.
Yeah, that's what I advocate with my VA clients all the time. I have had quite a few clients looking in Temecula, and I show them French Valley. I show them the unincorporated areas out here, and they're like, "Wow, this is such a better investment." And I break it down financially. I show them how much more they're winning on this side of the fence.
They're like same schools.
Exactly, Temecula schools. We got the best in the country out here. Super low property taxes because we are unincorporated. There's so many benefits. So by being that specialist in your area and understanding how to strategize for your clients so that they can win for their investments, educating yourself so it benefits your clients and all these different things.
And that, of course, that's what I did.
Right.
I bought as a Lance Corporal in my neighborhood that I still own a house in. You know what I mean? And it was so good for me to have that financial stability of ownership. Okay.
Absolutely.
Great info. Thank you, Sarah Jackson. We appreciate you helping us to create this network of incredibly talented
Queen.
people. Sarah Jackson is a lender. Feel free to reach out to her. What's one of the beautiful things around here is that people are now making enough money in this network to where they're reaching out to Sarah about buying their own houses.
That's right.
And I'm not going to say any
Yep.
names because it's not my story. But at the end of the day, Like if you can create a network where your network determines your net worth, how do you go about it from a place of service?
Yep, absolutely.
And that's kind of been the theme of the show today.
Absolutely. Theme of life, man.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and check the Zoom to see if anybody has anything to add. I'm going to ask to unmute. Sarah says, hi, beautiful queen. Let's see here, Zoom. Barbara, would you like to, you have anything to chime in on, my friend? Awesome. Appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate your input. Okay, so mentorship, education, educate to dominate, gather around the fire, pass along the information, receive information. Of course, we think that we were put here to be heard and to be understood, when the opposite is true. We were put here to listen and to understand. What a beautiful opportunity that we have right now to inherit some of this wisdom that is being passed down to us, when we decide not to tuck away death, not to tuck away the dying, but to embrace death as a new form of life. And then because of that, we'll recognize this final chapter as a book all in of itself. And that it's part of this epic series that continues to go, that's interconnected, never stopping and going in all directions, that when you give to it, with your pen perpetually glued to the paper, you see that it is all connected, right? So as I'm leaving today, I'm leaving the house, I decide, because I try not to walk past dog shit. I try not to walk past, that's my new, I try not to walk past dog shit. My wife doesn't like to have to freaking deal with picking it up. She has a tendency to step in it immediately after it happens. So like as I'm heading into work, even if I'm late, I don't step past dog shit. And I've tried to put that as a place in my mind. Hey, don't walk past it, right? Is the trash full? Take it out. Oh, is there something on the ground? Pick it up. Is there somebody that's hurting? Help them, right? And as I'm throwing out this dog shit, my daughter yells out to me from the backyard, Dad, wait. And she gives me this flower to bring with me today. And all of that probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't stop to pick up some dog shit. It's all connected. Love you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy day 55. What a beautiful conversation that ended up being. Have a great day, everyone.